Welcome back to a brand new episode for the love of humankind. As always, I am your host, Jeff, and I'm coming into this episode with a lot of skepticism. I have questions. Hopefully, I brought people on to this episode that can answer those questions because dating is rough these days, and I think people out there also are asking the same thing. So, I want to welcome two good friends of mine, first time guests here on For the Love of Humankind. Some of you, if you've watched my previous podcast, you may recognize Derek. We talked about fitness and we talked about gaming and how the two interconnect. But this is a brand new podcast, brand new world, and I'm happy to have both Derek and Kate on this episode with me this week. And I'm going to let them introduce themselves a little bit. So, Derek, we'll start with you.
Yeah, my name is Derek. You covered it. That's it.
Damn, that
No,
was quick.
no. I guess a little bit about me. I live in the great state of North Carolina now, by way of Kansas, by way of Michigan. Uh, Ventured from higher education to now working with financial operations in commodity stock markets, and yeah, work from home. It's great. I hate Pokemon. Yeah, that's about me.
Love that.
Yeah, this is my wife's stuff. Yeah,
Yeah. The graded cards in the back are definitely, your
yeah,
wife's stuff.
yeah.
You're
I
giving away the ending to your stories here, but it's fine.
I haven't been playing the new game at all.
Oh,
I didn't buy it.
oh, okay.
My wife bought it. I bought it.
Okay. Okay. Kate, what
Okay,
about
Kate.
you?
I'm Kate. For the listeners, I've known Jeff since college. We met at Oakland. I am living in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan in Sault Ste. Marie, the very, very last exit of I-75.
Damn, that's
I
oddly specific.
still work. Yeah, I still work in higher education. And I'm working in Title IX. And I am unashamed crazy horse girl material. So that's, I guess, what you need to know about me.
I'm here for that. I appreciate both of you coming on for this episode. As I kind of alluded, I have some skepticism, and if you watched the previous two episodes, where I had Cassie and Allie on, we started talking a little bit about dating apps, but I do not believe dating apps are always. I'm going to say always. I'm going to preface this. Always lead to success, and I have these thoughts, and this is why I brought you two on as successful cases and successful case studies. Essentially, that sounds like a really weird way to say that, but dating apps are not meant to be deleted. If they were meant to be deleted, those companies would not be making money, right? Those companies, their apps would not exist. And so I am of the thought process that in order to be successful from a dating app, you need to put money into it. Now, I'm curious with the two of you, have either of you ever put money into a dating app?
Not a dime.
So I used a paid dating app, but I used the free month trial that came with it.
Okay.
So
Okay. So yes and no. Okay.
yeah.
Oh, okay. So both of you currently are with a partner that you met off of a dating app. And I'm curious, Derek, you kind of said that you used the free trial. So what dating app did you use?
All right. So I started off just like I think anybody not sure about what they were doing on Tinder for like 2 days,
2 days,
and
that's it.
that sucked. Tinder was bad. I think I used Match as well,
Okay.
but then I was, cruising through my Gmail one night, and because they have all this personal information about me on the
Yeah.
internet, there was a banner ad in my Gmail for an app called Zoosk,
Mm.
which a lot of people give me a weird look. They'd never heard of it, and neither had I at the point.
Mm.
And I was like, well, I'll give it a shot. Because my kind of philosophy was I didn't want, I don't know, I wasn't there for hookups. I wasn't there for
Yeah.
randomness. I wanted something serious. I was mid-20s wanting to start my life.
Mm.
And so my philosophy was if I get on an app where people put money into it, I'm going to be encountering more people who are serious about a relationship,
Mm.
not people who are just out there to have fun.
Right.
So it was Zeus that I met Leanne on, and yeah, I'll save that story for when you ask. But
All right. So
Yep.
so Zeus. Okay.
Zeus,
Kate, what
they've
about
got
you?
one. They've got one.
So which one was the one I was successful on?
Yeah, and then we're gonna go back to talking about experiences in general with dating apps. But I want to know what was a successful app for you?
Okay, yeah. I was successful on Hinge.
Okay.
Very quickly actually.
Okay.
It was my very first Hinge date.
Okay. Okay. Doing something wrong here.
It was the first app that I tried, just to be clear. But it was the first time I downloaded Hinge. It was like it wasn't that old of an app when I got it.
Okay. Hmm. Hmm. Noted. I'll keep that in mind. So, you all have found success, and now we've alluded to it a little bit, but I want to know where your relationships are right now, and then we're gonna jump back to experiences in general. But where are you at in your relationships? Based off of who you matched with or went on these dates with, whether it was Zeus, Hinge, like where y'all at?
I'm here.
Welcome. I wouldn't have
we
had you
are-
on here.
Me and my wife are married for now a year and 2 months, just about. We've been together since January 2017, and at time recording this, it's November 29th, 2022. So I'll let other people listening do the math.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So you're married. So you found
Yeah.
marriage off of Zeus.
Yeah.
Okay, love that. Kate, what about you?
Chris and I met each other in October 2020, 2 years ago, and we just bought a house October 2022. So we are 1 month into home ownership together, and so that's a pretty big step.
Yeah. Hopefully many months ago.
Yeah, we had lived together for a bit back at my previous home
Okay.
for about a little under a year.
Okay.
So that was there too.
Okay. So success works on dating apps apparently, and I'm curious because I can only see from the male perspective, right? But from the stories that I've heard, from whether it be TikTok, friends, things I read on the internet, because the internet tells everything, and is always right. Men tend to have a more difficult time finding a genuine match, if that is what they are looking for. Men tend to receive less matches, and women, or those that identify as women, tend to receive more matches, but have a more difficult time with harassment through apps. May also struggle with finding those more genuine connections, right? Because they're so used to getting all of these messages from guys that are like, hey, like, I'm just trying to fuck, or like, like, nice feet. Can I buy your feet pics? Things like that, right? Like, so I'm curious to hear like your experiences with dating apps. And obviously we got a couple different perspectives here. Derek, I know you said you were on Tinder for 2 days, which I'm curious to hear about why that was. And Kate, I know you had kind of alluded to trying other apps before Hinge. So like, what have your experiences been like on dating apps? Like, have they been positive? Have they been negative? And then I'll kind of talk a little bit about my experiences too.
Yeah. I can go.
The floor is yours.
So I would say that for me, oh no. um, I think that I found a really good match on Hinge. But before Hinge, it was Tinder, it was Bumble, it was a couple times Coffee Meets Bagel.
I haven't heard that name in a while.
Yeah, like really like funny ones like that. But I did experience the most of that like harassment type behavior on Tinder for sure. It definitely lessened like the further away from like the Tinder ideology that the app got. So like Bumble came out, like I felt like a significant decline in that type of behavior. And then like Hinge, I felt another decline as well. And that was from my experiences in like Metro Detroit and in Louisville, Kentucky, and Muncie, Indiana, and in Sault Ste. Marie. Like it's it's been all over.
Yeah.
And I've seen those same trends, and I haven't had like any crazy like scary experiences or anything like that. Just like people who are quick to anger if you don't like immediately love them or whatever. And like honestly, I have never had like more than a few dates with anyone from any of those apps at all. It's never been like, oh yeah, this is going to be a good thing. I've never felt that with anyone before this. So I never had like any short-term relationships come out of it. It was just like, okay, well, this was a nice way to spend some time, but that's good.
So, Kate, I'm curious. So obviously you said you tried, multiple apps and then kind of moving, obviously Tinder seems to be the one a lot of people, typically will start with. So like, what do you think it was that made each app a little bit different? Like you said, like, obviously you felt more of like the harassment type on Tinder. Like, why do you think those other apps were different? Yeah, I'm curious.
It's hard to say. I think that it kind of starts in the way that they were marketed.
Okay.
Like Bumble, like there's plenty of problematic things I think about the way Bumble is marketed and the way that it's built. But like the initial idea was trying to put a little bit more like power into the women's hands. I think, and that type of mentality, I think, attracted a certain type of people who were interested in participating in that type of, I think. So it just, I think whatever an app places value on in their marketing is going to attract those types of people, I think, who are interested in that types of value.
Okay. It's interesting. Yeah, because I have used the Gambit as well. And, I think there have been points in my life where, I'm like, okay, Bumble, like you said, like I want to put the power in their hands. Like I don't want to be another creepy guy that just like, slides into their DMs with some lame pickup line. And if you just say like, hey, how are you? Like most of the time you're not going to get a response, at least from my experiences. So I think that's interesting that you talk about that, because I didn't realize that was kind of like a problematic thing. But I don't, haven't looked into that kind of stuff. So, like, what is it about that? Like, as I get a Bumble notification on my phone, that's really ironic. Like, what about that do you think makes it like problematic?
I think it's just very heteronormative.
Okay.
Um, really, that's the basis of like where things kind of break down
Okay.
with the whole idea, and gender norms and things like that. But I think the idea of it is okay. I didn't mean to come off as like calling out the app
Oh,
or
no.
anything.
I
I don't think it's a problem to use it. I just think
Listen.
that it can have like problematic tendencies.
Listen, if I got Bumble developers listening to my podcast, we're doing something right. I don't know. Um, listen, if you need help, let me know. But no, I think that's a good perspective because that's something I didn't think about. So, and I'm curious to come back to, and this is something I'll ask both of you. Like curious to come back to why you think Hinge worked for you. So start thinking about that. But Derek, what about your experiences? Like Tinder for 2 days? Like what was it about Tinder that didn't work for you? Like
Yeah, very minimal experience overall over the course of the board. Tinder more so. I think I really understood how surface level it was, which I really wasn't interested in. But I also was working in higher ed in the heart of a major U.S. college campus, and one, didn't want to be on the news for
Oh,
any reason
yeah.
that I shouldn't be on the news for. And two, I just didn't want to cross paths with any students
Yeah.
and risk my job because I'd moved across the country and worked at that point my last 7 years of my life to get into the field of. So I had to be really particular about where was I looking for people to meet, and are they students at Carolina? And I had to set those parameters first to make sure I wasn't dabbling with people I shouldn't be in an intimate relationship with. So
Right.
that's your answer as to why I went away from that and went to like a Match or Zeus and apps like that. I mean Tinder, the way it's set up, swiping, it's just so I don't know, man.
Yeah.
It puts the emphasis solely on the looks of the person, not so much on the personality, what they're all
Yeah.
about, what they want, and if they actually match up with you, because people put some wild stuff in their bios. They put their best photos up there, or it just doesn't, I feel like, it does the job for what people know it to do for the people that want it to do that job.
Okay.
I'll put it that way, I think.
Okay.
But for actual dating, from people I've heard, from what I've experienced, that's not what Tinder is good at, I should say.
Okay.
So I'm sure it can happen. For like the other apps, I had really talked to 3 people, including my wife, and I think they were all on Zoosk. I think I went off of Match pretty quickly, and Zoosk was what I primarily used. And the first person I talked to, it was kind of more like she was cool. I liked talking to her, but I almost felt like I was talking to you, like I was talking to a friend.
Oh, okay.
And
Damn.
it didn't feel any more than that. I don't know how to explain it. It just didn't feel like it was a personality match to lead to a relationship, but could have been a friendship.
Yeah.
And that would have been cool. The second person was kind of strange because she would text me a lot, and every time I told her I was doing something that wasn't at my apartment, she'd say, "You should send me a picture. You should send me a picture. You should send me a picture of you."
Huh.
I'm like, let's cool it on the photos because I don't even know you. So that was that kind of put me off, and it's like, I just don't think that this is I don't think this is it. So
Mm.
stopped talking to her, and at that point I had matched with Leanne, and really like the night we matched, we talked, and it was just like we couldn't get enough of knowing who the other person was,
Mm.
and uh, got to the point where I woke up, I was excited to talk to her, went to bed, happy I was talking to her, and uh, felt right. So we went on our first date, I think 2 weeks after we matched, and our first date lasted for 6 hours, I think 6 or 6.5 hours, and we went to eat, we drove around, we went to a bowling alley that didn't have any lanes open, ran into one of my students, and then
Oh.
went to uh, where did we went and saw a movie. That's what we
Mm.
did. That I still have the ticket to.
Oh.
Um, and yeah, I mean, it went really well, and kind of built from there. Uh, so I guess I got lucky, I
Third,
guess is how I'll put it.
so third time's a charm for you.
Apparently so.
Love that.
Yeah.
Love that.
Yeah.
So, no, go ahead.
Uh, I was gonna say I think I might be jumping the gun. Maybe it's some questions that you're gonna ask, but I think going into a dating app is all about your mindset and
Mm.
what you're expecting out of the other people on the other side.
Mm.
Because I think we like to not have to give a lot, but expect everything when we're on an app like that. Or at least what I've seen, and being around so many students that use them, from what I
Mm.
hear, and the way that they're just structured.
Yeah.
People put stuff in their bios that make them look perfect, and
Mm.
that makes you lead to expect the perfect person or expect perfection. And if you're expecting the perfect person, you're never going to meet the person you're looking for.
Mm.
And sometimes I think we can let our guard down a little bit, and we can learn to let people have faults and be okay with that, and see, do I match with this person and the faults they have and what's great about them, and
Mm.
do they make me better, and the shortcomings I have, do they help with that, do they not? Like, there's a lot of things that can go into it, and
Yeah.
yeah, sometimes I think we place expectations too high on the other people, or maybe expectations too high on ourselves for what
Mm.
we're thinking we're gonna come into. But
Yeah.
that's just my opinion based on my experience.
No, I think those are good points, and I kind of talked about this in last two episodes of the podcast. But I think with dating apps, one of the things that I think I hate the most, like you said, Derek, is like it is like a lot of the time that physical attraction first, right? Like people will spend hours trying to like perfect their like profile to be like this perfect person. Like they'll spend all of this time like crafting this like bio to make them seem, like you said, like this perfect person, and like that's not realistic, right? Like you think about people that go out there and like and catfish, right? And people that will Photoshop their pictures and put them in, and then if you go to meet them in person, like definitely not the same, right? Like because they don't think that they are going to be able to be loved for the way that they are, I think might be part of it, but also just because like again, like you said, the expectations part is like it's huge. And yeah, well, I want to come back to that because I think that's really interesting. And yeah, something that I think we don't talk enough about either.
But it is hard to put yourself out there, so I can
Oh yeah,
understand why people do that.
for sure. Um, so Kate, like, why do you think Hinge worked for you?
Well, actually, a lot of the reasons Derek was just mentioning about like why he needed to be so specific.
Mhm.
I was in a similar situation of I needed to be really specific about whose profile I was looking at, but also whose profile could even see mine,
Mm.
because I work at a university in a really small town.
Mm.
And the work that I do deals with sexual harassment at the university, and so like would not be a great look.
That makes sense.
to finding that person on dating apps. So I just wanted to be careful about how I was going about it. And what I found was Hinge like really offered the most like filter settings and allowed me to really like narrow down what that all looked like. So I felt like the most comfortable there. And it was also helpful because I was able to narrow down like other like less obvious things about people, like whether they smoke or not, or whether they drink, or whether they or like politically how do they lean, or like what religion they practice, or things like that. Like there's a lot of different I don't know, filters, and I was able to like identify things that were really important to me that I knew like these are things I need to be able to relate to my partner with, especially like what we're looking for in this situation. Like Derek was saying, I was looking for a serious relationship. I was very done with going on date after date that was meaningless, and I just wanted to settle down and find somebody to grow roots with, and I was very, very happy to find that. And I don't know that it was necessarily like Hinge that was the magical factor, but it offered the tools to help me narrow that down. And I don't know. I think luck was a lot of it as well, because like where I'm at right now, it's a very small population. So I'm very surprised. I was very surprised when I met him. And I'm always thankful for him.
This is so cute. Y'all are killing me. So you both kind of alluded to this, and I'm curious if you have, like, if you want to be a little bit more specific, but like when you all were like looking at you know, when you're setting up your profile and thinking about, you know, like you said, Kate, some of those preferences, like what did your preferences look like, right? Like obviously there's like the age you can set, there's distance, like what was, you know, some of the things that were like, okay, these are the things that I need to focus on to know that this is somebody that I want to find or potentially find to be with. If you remember specifically, you don't have to go into like whole detail and like spill your whole life story, but like,
I don't know if I remember exactly, because that was what, almost 6 years ago.
yeah.
So I know that I had age parameters set 3 years above and 3 years below my age.
Okay.
So I wanted to stay relatively close. So at that point, it was 22 to 28. I was 25 when Leanne and I met. And 22 was old enough to where I knew that nobody on my staff would be on there because I knew all their ages, and none of them were 22. And I worked in a first year building. Everybody was 18. So I knew at the very least, if I ran into somebody, it wasn't going to be somebody that I lived in the same building with. So I needed that. Location was relatively close within where I was. I didn't really have too many specific factors outside of that. I mean, I wasn't really picky. I'm open to if somebody believes in a different religion or political ideology, leans differently. If, you know, we can have those discussions and conversations and come to a common ground. And
Yeah.
I actually think that's a big part of how my wife and I got really close, were those conversations. And yeah, I mean, and it goes back to what I said earlier about not expecting the world from the other person, and being able to give a little bit of grace if it's somebody that you truly think that you can be compatible with. So, long answer for something short. I set an age parameter.
Yeah. Okay.
And that was about it.
Love that.
Really.
Love that.
Okay. Let's see. So I also had an age parameter. I think it was like less or down to 2 years younger than me, and I think up to more like 5 or 6 years older. I think I was about 28. The like when I was setting my parameters on Hinge.
Okay.
So it was like I was looking for somebody in their late 20s, like who would likely also be looking to settle down, and definitely somebody who's done with the college by far, as far as traditional students go. And I also had a like mileage distance as well. I knew that there were probably a lot of like really cool people, just a little bit further, but I had to be realistic of, okay, if I'm going to start a new relationship with somebody that's serious and I want to see them on a regular basis, how far am I actually willing to drive on a regular basis? So I set that to like 45 minutes or so. And because up here the winters are rough. So
yeah, when you're trying to drive through 2 feet of snow, yeah. Makes sense.
Yeah. And I was able to set like smoking preferences, like the smell of smoke can really get under my skin sometimes. So like, I was able to like set that as well. Not because people who smoke like are uncool or anything like that. It was just like a preference. Like it's just like what I was thinking about, and
drugs, kids.
You can like set like a priority, I think, or something like that. It was like this is a deal breaker or something like that, that you could set with that type of filter. I think I don't remember.
Okay.
And what else did I set? I set political ideology as well, like to like more neutral or left-ish, to where I like tend to lean. After living in Indiana for a long time, I had been on a lot of dates with folks who were more swinging pretty hard to the right, and just needed a breath of fresh air, of rather than always being in discourse about like just how we didn't agree on things. I would rather agree with somebody for a little bit and be able to come home and just relate to somebody in that area. And then I think that was it as far as those filters go.
Oh, yeah. I mean, like you said, Kate, I think Hinge has probably the gambit, more of a gambit than most. But I have a few more questions for y'all before we close out, and I'm gonna switch the tide here a little bit. So when you were going through profiles, what were initial red flags for you? How did you know these people you were like, nope, I'm good? Like, were there like trends that you noticed? Obviously, big one being dudes holding fish comes up a lot. But what were your red flags that you're like, this is not, I already know?
I mean, I think I got to roll with Kate on if I see a cigarette in hand, I'm good. Just not for me. So, I mean, that would be about it. I can't really say that there was anything that I noticed particular about anything that I used. I think a picture can tell a lot. So, people that maybe it seemed like they were out more in like a nightlife or party scene, and maybe we're at two different ventures in our lives. I don't know. Maybe I'm taking too much value for their photo. But I think the photo kind of set the tone for what I was expecting from that person. So I think that would be my answer for that, but I didn't notice anything specific from anything.
Okay, I feel like guys are notorious for having terrible profiles, so I'm curious.
I just want to say, I don't understand what is wrong with somebody being proud about a fish. And I also have to say that most of the time, like, that picture was like the most genuine smile that I could see.
Interesting. Okay.
On that person's profile. Like they're genuinely proud of like, look at this big
Yeah.
old cat. But I mean, I get it. It's like it's a generic picture that a lot of people post, but I mean, how many of those are there of women? I don't know. So I just wanted to say that in defense of
Yeah.
men who have that. I think red flags for me were similarly if it was always like a lot of alcohol in hand, I figured it was probably not going to be my speed. Just because like I just live a quieter life nowadays. There was a time for that. But it does not take much to get me hungover these days. But I tried to give most people a chance. I didn't really have like any like rules of like if somebody does this or says this is absolutely not. But I think a lot of times like there was a general tone that there you could kind of tell how the entire conversation was going to go. I could tell when somebody was just genuinely just trying to get out there versus when somebody was trying to be really charismatic and really trying to like reel somebody in. And then also versus somebody who just had little communication skills. And so like it really like you could just kind of tell what you were kind of in for. But I don't think that overall on Hinge at least it was really so bad.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So on the flip side, what made a good profile for you two? Like what was like the thing that drew you to the person or drew you to man, I don't even I've used Zoosk like once. I don't really know how it works anymore. But Hinge, like what made you like want to hit that like button or like what made a profile green for you?
What?
Office quotes.
Yeah.
Somebody that wasn't afraid to admit that they were a little bit lazy sometimes. I feel like some profiles were like, I'm very adventurous. I do all these things. But like the ones that were like, sometimes I just want to hang out on the couch on the weekends. I'm like, yeah, we don't always have to be doing
Same.
something.
Yeah.
And yeah, I kind of mentioned this a little bit earlier, but seeing a genuine smile really made a difference.
Okay.
I suppose that I will unleash my philosophy on dating apps if I haven't already with my answer to this. I don't remember a single thing of what was in my wife's profile because that's probably the least important part about the entire dating app experience. I think it's the first impression, sure, but those interactions with your initial match happen so fast, and like I said before, is very surface level. I mean, say something decent. Obviously, there's got to be some sort of physical attraction because that's why there's a picture, and I do think that you have to have a physical attraction to a partner to some extent. But really, I think that was the least important part of the entire experience. And I think everything else that came after that, the messages and the genuine conversation that came up, and I'll say the one thing I'll give benefit of the profile is that I'm somebody who likes to find a commonality to talk about. So that can be an easy way in to talk to somebody about something in their profile if I relate to that. Because if somebody talked about maybe a game, they like to travel, you can talk about where you traveled, things like that, to break the ice at least. But I think everything after that really is what it's all about. So I don't know if that's giving you what you're looking for out of that, but I I don't even know if somebody necessarily has to have specific things in a profile bio.
Mm,
Seem like a genuine human, genuine person. Uh, don't show me that you're trying too hard. Don't show me that you're trying to be fake. If I can tell that you're just trying to be you, you have to have some sort of emotional intelligence to be
yeah.
on these things. Then that's really what I think is important.
Yeah, I think that emotional intelligence piece, I think goes back to something Kate said earlier about like the conversations. And there's a lot of people who are very, like you said earlier too, Derek, like very surface level, especially on apps like Tinder. Um, I mean, people are coming into everything with so much trauma, and relationship trauma is very real.
Mm-hmm.
And so it can be very hard to put yourself out there and um, start those connections, because I think even too, like, not being able to have like a face to face conversation, or not being able to have like a even like a phone conversation, that can be really difficult in understanding like how somebody responds, or like how somebody's nonverbals are, right? And that becomes really big, and you miss a lot of that in dating apps. And that kind of leads to the last question that I have for the two of you. Obviously, being successful through using dating apps, would you do it again? But also, do you think that if you didn't use a dating app, you would have met the person that you're with in the wild?
No,
Ooh.
I wouldn't have met her. No, not at all.
Okay.
Because I never would have went to where she was,
Mm.
and um, well, I mean, it would have had to have been a common run-in at a grocery store, and that's not what I think of when I go to the produce section, you know. But
Do my tomatoes feel
if
firm to you?
is this red enough? I don't know. A little green. Uh, no, I think would I do it again? Yeah, and I think dating apps have very good potential.
Mm.
Um, like I said, it's got to be all about so much about mindset and how much
Yeah.
grace you give others, and also how much you're willing to let your guard down.
Mm.
I think you really have to have a conversation with yourself about where you're willing to go with a person,
Mm.
because some people do expect to get some of that back from you. Let your guard down a little bit and tell them who you are, and show that you're real, and that you're actually here for some sort of emotional connection
Mm.
that's deeper than what dating apps are stereotypically known for, which is a physical hookup. Um, so I think they're very good. I don't know if I could see myself going to a bar, mainly because I'm quiet, and I don't like to talk over the music and all that. So like that was something that I was really really worried about
Mm.
when I went back, on the dating market. Was I dating apps had a lot of stereotypes to them. I felt like I know how to talk to people. I don't need a dating app to meet somebody.
Mm.
But then I was like, well, where the hell do I meet somebody here?
Facts.
And
Facts.
so, like, I don't want to talk to somebody at the gym, because I know I don't want to be bothered when I'm in the middle of my set. Um, and like all these things. So it just gave a good platform to go at things at your own pace, and kind of just take things slow,
Yeah.
and let it be mellow if that's what you want. And so, yeah, I would do it again if I was in the situation to need to.
Mm.
And I do think it's a good avenue. It's not for everybody, so that I understand, but
Mm.
I think it's worth giving a shot.
Love that. Yeah, I yeah, I don't know where the fuck to meet people. The gym, I just feel weird. Like, I don't want to, like, that's kind of like my sanctuary, and like I don't want to like go talk to somebody like you said who's working out, because I also don't want to be that creepy dude who's like, oh, I saw you squatting 225 over there, and like, what's up? Like, that just seems really weird to me. So, yeah, I agree. I don't know how to do that. Kate, what about what? Throwing myself out there, throwing shade. But Kate, what about you? Do you think you would have met Chris in the wild?
I don't know. I don't know. We weren't that far. But I don't know what he would have been doing up here.
Mm.
Because he was basically on the other side of the peninsula, going to boat building school there, for a second career. He's a veteran, so
Oh.
yeah, and so he was like checking that out and doing that down in Cedarville, and so it was. I mean, it's a really tiny town down there, so like they would come up here, you know,
Okay.
to do. It's possible, but Chris and I are both like homebodies, so the chance both of us would have happened to have gone out on the same night to the same place, like it would. I mean, it would have to be fate.
Mm.
I mean, I guess that's a totally different question of whether or not I believe in fate. But yeah, I don't know. I really don't know if we would have met.
Yeah, that's interesting. Because that's the one thing is like I don't understand, and that's where my skepticism comes from, right? Because like obviously it hasn't worked for me, but that doesn't mean it doesn't work for everybody. And for those of you that are listening that are like, well, shit, like I don't know how to date, I don't know if dating apps are for me. To me, it sounds like Tinder is not the option. Like if you're trying to find somebody to get some drinks with and have some casual relations with, sure, maybe. But if you're trying to be, more intentional, there are apps out there for you. Obviously, you can put money into apps, and that was kind of my point in the beginning, where these free apps, they want you to spend some money sometimes because but it works. I've got two people here who have been successful. I'm thankful that you two were able to come on and talk a little bit about your experiences, and hopefully you learned a little bit about the other person's experience too. Because yeah, dating apps are weird. We're in a weird time, I think, especially after COVID. People are still like, I don't have social skills. I don't know how to meet people in public, and so dating apps might be your move. So thank you both for coming on. Hopefully, some of the listeners learned a little bit and how they could, potentially find somebody on a dating app. It's about the mindset, as Derek said. It's going into these, setting up, parameters for yourself. So if you found this helpful, make sure you click that like, subscribe button, and we will see you next time on For the Love of Humankind. As always, I'm your host, Jeff. Take care.